What's going on, everyone? My name is Rosendo. Welcome back to my channel. We are back with another video, and today we are back with another track review. I know I said we would have more track reviews and plenty more track reviews coming because until now, my next track won't be out until another month and a half at the earliest. So expect another 6 weeks or so of maybe 8 weeks or so of track reviews. Here we are. Now I want to get straight to it, but before that I just want to mention one thing about the track review series, because I know earlier I mentioned that I said I was going to see if I could do maybe 2 track reviews a week, but I think I'm going to leave it at 1, and the reason is because the track review videos are pretty short. One of the reasons I wanted to think about maybe doing 2 a week is because the difference between maybe doing 2 track reviews that are 20 minutes long and sometimes doing a track breakdown video that's 50 minutes long, the recording and the editing is pretty much exactly the same. But I kind of like when I can edit a short video in the week, because at the end of the day, track reviews are part of what I want to do and contribute, but music production is the biggest thing. So if I have a shorter video to edit and just one of them, not 2 of them, it gives me more time to work on my music and actually produce, which is the thing that matters. And quick side note, it's actually one of the things I see a lot of producers get distracted with, is putting their attention to things that aren't producing, because it might be a more efficient, let's say, way to get success or to get noticed. But I do think that we as producers and artists should be putting most of our attention to making tracks and art. So again, I'm going to stick with 1 track review a week because that will give me more time to work on my production instead of just spending most of my time doing recording and editing track reviews. And the second reason is because even if I do twice a week, I'll try to record them all on the same day. And I like to be the type of person that can commit and give all my energy to one thing. And if I can give a full detailed explanation and track review of 1 track, I think it'll be better off than trying to force 2 in a week where I give my generic review and opinion on 2 tracks instead of really saying, hey, let's talk in depth about this one thing, because that's what I do best. So I want to stick with 1 just so I can really commit to that 1 and give everything I have to that 1 track review in a week, which is exactly what we're going to do today, because we have a track review. I believe we're on episode number 6, I want to say. So let's get to it. Make sure to like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's hop into Spotify. All right, we are back in Spotify, this time taking a look at John Summit's latest single, Lights Go out of his Experts Only Records, a record label I know is getting a lot of attention and talk nowadays. Now, this is a tough one because I'm not really a big John Summit or house guy. I'm not into tech house as much anymore. Although I want to get back into house. I do miss house. Not necessarily tech house, but progressive house is definitely something I like. And even just kind of some more ambient house. That's not the point. The point is this. I'm kind of I used to listen to John Summit a lot more. I don't really listen to him as much anymore. I don't really listen to house as much anymore. But I chose John Summit because, hey, I mean, like, I'm the melodic bass guy, but we're doing track reviews of different things. Let's go somewhere strange, somewhere different. Let's go to John Summit for our track review today. And that's exactly where we are. We are at John Summit's new single, Lights Go Out, that just came out recently, and we're going to give it our review. Before that, actually, I will say one general thing about the track. This is actually one of those tracks that I listened to it. I actually had to listen to this track 3 times. I listened to it and I had no clue what I just listened to, and I had to listen to it more times than normal. This was my 4th time listening to this track to really kind of understand the ins and outs and see how it worked together. Definitely a track that caught me off guard. But we're going to be able to actually talk about the listening experience as well, because I think we will play it. So here we go. This is going to be a pretty in-depth review, because normally I give my whole opinion on the track and a few things that are worth highlighting. But here we're actually going to break down the track beginning to end. Luckily, it's only 2 minutes and 38 seconds, which I'll hopefully remember to talk about the length of the track at the end. But let's not put it off any longer. I already committed to it, so let's do it. Because you start the track and the first thing you get is this. Let's pay attention to this as well. So there's your first phrase. Now, right off the bat, what you listen to is kind of those really full, kind of ambient, reverb, spacey, kind of stadium-like vocals that really give this track, if we're being blunt, kind of a very party, almost frat party-like atmosphere going for it. The lyrics, the artwork, frankly, the cover art, and this canvas just really give the impression that this is meant to be like a party song, and frankly, to some extent, like a frat party song. Everyone's going crazy. It's the lyrics that people can kind of sing along to and just be like, hey, stadium club party banger that everyone wants to sing to. Right off the bat, there's no hiding that I'm not a fan of things like that. I'm a fan of art, or artistic and intentional expressive tracks, not really big party anthems, specifically things like that I don't like. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that one is right and one is not right. Everyone is free to do their own things. I don't think the world would be very interesting if everyone did it the way I did it. Everyone is free to do the things the way they like. That's just the first thing that kind of stuck out to me. And I will mention one thing right now that will kind of give away a little bit of my impression of the track, which is I'm okay and comfortable being a little bit critical about all those things I just mentioned, because I'm actually going to be quite nice to this track after now. It's something this track actually caught me by surprise a lot. So I'm going to be fairly nice to this track, but I did want to put that out there that, hey, A, I'm not a fan of kind of what this track is trying to accomplish and get across, and that's just something I don't like. But B, as someone who doesn't like that, I'm going to be pretty kind to this track because it did kind of it did feel like it was a nice surprise. So there you go. That's the first thing you listen to. You have those lyrics, big kind of sing-along lyrics. I'm not a fan of explicit lyrics either, but that's just kind of my subjective thing. It is what it is. Again, very sing-along-y. Even the melody, I don't really like da 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 da, and then it kind of da 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 da. I think it's a little bit like too like easily like, hey, like we want this to be a sing-along track, but again, It is what it is. It's something I'm not a fan of. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean I'm right, that they're right, that someone's right or wrong. There's no right or wrong here. It's just an opinion. But like I said, I'll be a lot kinder to the track for the remainder of this. Give me 1 second though. Okay, after doing a little bit of metronoming, it looks like we're somewhere around 133, 135 BPM, which I knew it wasn't like a 128 song. So we're at a pretty fast BPM for a house track. Anyways, where were we? So now that I got kind of that preface out of the way, let's actually talk about, now that we got the impression of what the track is trying to accomplish, let's actually talk about what happens in the track. Because we move on from the first phrase to this. You get a house drop pretty quickly, straight away. One phrase later. Stutter effects on the vocals. I really do like the bass that feels kind of dark, and I actually like the production and the mixing of this section. It really gives you a lot of groove, B, a lot of energy, but just that bass line is so dark and gritty, and I actually do really like it. So that's kind of what you get right there. The vocals already seem to get a little bit kind of repetitive already on this area, but it switches up very interestingly right here. When the track drops, you get the vocals again. You're like, I already kind of heard them already. You throw another kind of drop and rhythm over it, a trap beat, we'll say, over the same vocals, and I'm going to mention more about this later, but it's already at a switch up that A, I didn't see coming. B, I think is nice and interesting and unique, and C, that I kind of like. Some dark plucks right there. Oh, yeah, some more fills and effects right there. Into the next phrase. Nice synth areas right there. Again, very reminiscent of kind of that Playboy Cardi type sound. Vocals come in, and you'll hear here that the vocals are actually kind of played. That the vocals are actually kind of played again over another rhythm. This is basically the third rhythm we got it played over. Vocal sustain, a bunch of normal stuff. Again, you slow it down to give you the impression that you just don't know where you're going to go. Vocals come in. That siren really makes sure that the next drop hits, especially since you haven't really had it in a while. You went a hip-hop way. You went a very synthy way. And when you don't know what's coming, you get hit with that third drop, second drop, we'll call it the last drop. And now this is kind of where you just get that sustained, delivered kind of drop that you really want out of your track, and you just deliver what the listener wants at the end, right? Now that you kind of switch it up a ton, you just let the drop sustain out, especially for what feels like a phrase longer compared to the previous speed of the track, and you just let that drop kind of be played for the listener. And of course, track comes down. Now, I actually kind of said everything I wanted to say there, so maybe I'll just have this be the listening section and just put a note that'll be cutting things. I don't know. In any case, we talked about the intro and kind of what the intro... I guess that's one of the reasons I hesitated, because I knew there were going to be a lot of things to say about the intro that I didn't want to say as the track was going on, but we got basically everything I wanted to say out. Now, where does this kind of leave us with my impression of the track, with what this means about the track, with what I think about the track? Number one, the biggest thing that I actually kind of like about this track is the uniqueness, and specifically with kind of, as I mentioned, how the vocal gets layered among different kind of melodies and sounds and beats. Now, the reason I really want to draw attention to this is because I criticize a lot of other tracks for their lack of progression, and especially when I say how symmetrical they are, and especially when I say things like, that doesn't mean that artists need to do something drastically new every single time, or reinvent the wheel every single time, or switch up the track on the second half every single time. But this is a very good example of how you can just achieve good progression and frankly narratives when you take the melody, which is, and right now we're just going to say the vocals, and especially since the vocals are the hook of the track, and you layer them over 3 distinct beats. You have the first kind of house drop, right, that you get immediately. The vocals already go in the intro, setting the stage and kind of giving you the ambient, the party ambience. But aside from that, they already kind of give you what we're going to call the hook of the track, and maybe to some extent the melody of the track. But you take that hook, you take that vocal, you take that phrase, you take those vocals, the melody, the hook, you take those vocals, and you layer them at the first drop over a unique fast house beat, a house drop, which again, I already kind of like the sound design of it, gives it some good uniqueness. But when you do that, you layer it over the house drop, over the house beat, the house drop. You drop the house beat to kind of let the vocals kind of fill you up again. It's again, vocals alone, vocals over a house beat, vocals alone again, and already when you think you're kind of getting tired of the vocals, especially since it's very party-esque, it's like, okay, are we just going to get this all the time? It's just going to be like, hey, let's go out vocals. But actually what John Summit does is, again, vocals over house beat, empty vocals with no beat, and then you throw it over a second beat, a kind of a more hip hop trap beat, and it gives the vocals which have the same melody and the same rhythm, it just gives it another beat and another rhythm to lay over and give it kind of a little bit more nuance and feel and character to it, which again is a good way of saying, hey, artists don't need to reinvent the wheel, but taking the same vocal/hook and just layering it over different rhythms and beats, fantastic way to give progression. It's basically everything I've talked about in my progression videos, in what is progression, and probably the most simple form of progression video. And if I remember correctly, specifically my what is progression video. But again, you're just getting different rhythms and emphasizing different things and getting a change in rhythm, but with the same vocal over it, to the point where you drop the vocals after you get it over the trap beat, you drop the vocals again, you get something a little bit more synthy that feels a little bit more, like I said, Astro World Playboy Cardi-like, which again, I'm not a fan of. And I'm not the person who should be commenting on this, because I'm very much not a hip hop guy. I'm the last person to know things about it. I used to listen to it a lot more. But again, you get it over those sounds. Nice synths at the end of the day. Cool kind of synths. What sounds like, droney Reese-like stuff. Detuned-like stuff as well. But that's not the point. We're talking about progression here, because again, after you take the vocals and put them over a trap beat, you just get that synth area that gives you a little bit of ambience, almost like a break. And it's one of those things where you don't know where the track's going to go after. So delivering that drop kind of without the vocals this time, and just having it hit and impact a little bit more, especially at a faster BPM, just gives you a lot of things that you really want. You finish it up with the stutter vocals. You let the drop play out for an extra phrase compared to the previous pacing of the track, the previous speed of the track. And you just end up with a very, very nice journey that caught me by surprise. In some ways, and this is going to sound crazy, in some ways the storytelling of this track really does kind of remind me of Empty and Alone and Betrayal out of my Expression EP. Empty and Alone being one of my favorite tracks, and Betrayal being also a track that I really like, because you do something very similar with the last drops, where in Empty and Alone, you get the really nice, super soft final drop that just hits you hard, which you already had earlier in the track, albeit subdued. But because the track kind of went in so many different ways in the middle, you don't really know what you're going to get at the end. And it allows you to deliver that drop and deliver it hard. And just like Betrayal, where you really just let the drop at the end just play out, it's basically just taking a drop that you already heard, but that kind of it didn't really get what it deserved. So you take that drop, but you let it play out a little bit longer and give you a little bit more of an experience that way. So again, these are all things that I'm shocked I'm saying about not only to be fair, John, like, credit where credit is due. John, like, I really thought this was going to be a very simple track for John Summit, but credit where credit is due. This is a very nice track. I'm saying a lot of really nice things about it. And I will have to give John Summit a shout out, because You know, my very first track I ever made, my Fake ID remix, was basically made possible because of a tutorial I found of his on YouTube of how to make a tech house track. So again, John Summit very much has that kind of party frat bro kind of ambience and aura and vibe that around his production style. Especially you take a look at this, especially you take a look at the canvas, which I brought attention to earlier, that meant to be like, hey, this is going to be like a party song, something I'm very much not a fan of. Credit where credit's due, this track is really, really well made. And 2 minutes and 38 seconds, it would be so easy to say, as someone who hates short tracks, it would be so easy to say, hey, this track is short and it doesn't really accomplish much, so, you know, I'm going to not get points for that. But it gave you it was short, but it gave you a story and a progression to follow, and really a journey and experience to follow as well. That good track. Although this might come as a shock, I'm not going to really dock many points for this being a 2 minute and 38 second track. I mean, my last 2 tracks have been over 6 minutes, and my track coming out in March is going to be over 5. So the fact that, you know, this is a short track and I'm liking it, I have to applaud John Summit for this track. I really do. You know, let's check the credits, because it's just tough. It's tough. Yeah. You never really know how many people work on a track for an artist as big as John Summit. So you do have to give credit to, you know, all these people right here, because, you know, it'd be easy to say that John Summit did all of it, and obviously John Summit did not do all of it. I'm sure he did it. I'm sure he contributed. I'm not trying to, you know, discredit him. I'm sure he contributed a lot to the track. But again, it's really rare nowadays for, you know, one person to do everything when, you know, for someone as successful as him. So credit to all these people here. But at the end of the day, John Summit is the artist. Credit to John Summit for making a very, very good track, a unique track, if nothing. I don't just want to say good because it's like, hey, it's a good track, cool, but it's like, this caught me by surprise. It's an impressive track that, again, has a lot of really nice things going for it, things that are reminiscent out of my discography on tracks that I hold really close to my heart. Well done. Now, when it comes to my final rating, I really did not think I would be saying all this when I first opened my phone and said, hey, you know what, let's go for a John Summit track. And then I saw it was 2 minutes and 38 seconds. I did not think I would be saying all of this. And then I saw the artwork and I saw the title, and the first 5 seconds of the track hit me when you get the vocals. I did not think I would be saying all of this about this track. But here I am giving my final review. What do I give this track out of 10? Now, the last time I gave a track that genuinely surprised me was a rating was the first episode where I gave To the Moon by Illenium and Alok a 6 out of 10. And I think I just have to give this track a nice 6 out of 10 as well, because well done. It's above average track, very well done. I don't think I can personally give it a 7, and I wouldn't be mad at people if they did. The style is not for me. Subjectively, this is all subjective. I can't bring myself to give it a 7. It is 2 minutes and 38 seconds long. You know, it's not as artistic and, you know, narrationally intentional and artistic and as expressive as I like tracks to be. Tracks that are like a 7 out of 10 to be. So I have to give it a 6, but it's a very, very, very subjective 6, just because I don't think I want to compare this track to, you know, some of my other favorite artistic expressive tracks, you know, with my super saws and strings and all the things I love. So I have to give it a 6. I wouldn't be mad if you gave it a 7. I wouldn't even be mad at myself if I gave it a 7. I just don't think I can, because of my own biases and subjectiveness and the things that I like to see in my music. But as far as the techniques, as far as the story, as far as the production, as far as a lot of things, you know, you give it a 6, and you maybe give it like a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I'm thinking about this more, and it's really just at some point you have to acknowledge your own biases here. If this was my style, if this was my sound, definitely give it a 7, because it's not for me, and it's not, and it wasn't made for people like me. I don't think I can, and I don't think there's anything wrong with me not giving it a 7. And as I will say before, and I'll remind people that a 6 for me, a 6 out of 10 is still a good rating. It's an above average track. A 6 out of 10 is a good thing. So yeah, a very solid, high praised 6 out of 10 for this track. Well done. And I think that is about all I have to say. Again, if you had told me I would be saying all these things about a John Summit track, a John Summit frat party anthem, 2 minutes and 38 second John Summit frat party anthem, earlier today before I listened to the track, I would have thought you were crazy. But credit where credit is due. I applaud the track. There you go. There's my final rating, a subjective 6 out of 10, and I wouldn't be mad at an objective 7 out of 10. But my subjectiveness puts it at a 6. But again, a very well-deserved 6, a high 6. Lights Out by John Summit. And that is about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this track. If this is something that's right up your alley, these house, party club bangers, if that's something right up your alley, let me know what you guys think. If that's something not up your alley, also let me know what you guys think. I'm really interested to see if anyone says anything about this track down in the comments. Let me know what your ratings are. Let me know if you like the track. Let me know if you listen to a lot of John Summit. I really don't listen to him as much anymore, although I still do like his music. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I said, and make sure to leave your thoughts down below. More track reviews coming because my next track is not even finished yet, or it's not even uploaded for distribution yet. So plenty more track reviews coming. So make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But other than that, that is all I have for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.